Ta-da, man, I've been thinking about this thing for days. You ever hear something that just sticks with you, like it crawls into the back of your head and refuses to leave? That's what happened when I heard what Biden said about Islam. And it's not even about politics, not some campaign slogan or a press moment. It felt like something way beyond that, like he wasn't talking as a president anymore. He was talking as a man who'd seen the world messed up, survived, aged, and was finally starting to understand some universal truth that most of us miss. Ta-ta, so imagine this. You've got this old guy, leader of the free world, seen everything, right? Wars, corruption, technology, culture wars, division, all of it. And suddenly, near the end, he says something that doesn't sound like a politician. It sounds like someone who's looking at the edge of life and realizing there's something bigger than all the noise. He said something about Islam, not in the way politicians usually do, not to pander, not to lecture, but in this calm, almost reflective tone. Like he'd found something profound about the faith, about the people, about the discipline behind it. And that's what threw me. Because when people in power talk about religion, it's usually for control or optics or trying to sound inclusive. But this didn't sound like that. It sounded like someone who'd seen through the chaos and suddenly saw that there was something in Islam that the modern world had completely lost. A kind of structure, humility, and purpose that's been missing in our Western obsession with comfort and consumption. So you ever notice that? Like, we live in a time where everyone's chasing dopamine, likes, followers, attention, validation, but discipline, purpose, connection with something beyond yourself. That's rare now. And Biden, this dude who's been in power for decades, suddenly starts talking about Islam as if it holds some kind of timeless answer to the moral collapse we're in. That blew my mind. And maybe that's why it hit so hard. Because when a guy who's been part of the machine for so long suddenly steps outside it and starts speaking about something ancient, spiritual, grounded, it makes you wonder what he's seen behind those curtains of power. Maybe he realized that politics, economics, ideology, they're all temporary. But faith, that deep, lived experience of belief, that's eternal. And maybe, just maybe, he saw something in Islam that reminded him of the order this chaotic world needs. Till now, I'm not saying he converted or had some secret enlightenment moment, but you could feel it. That he wasn't talking about religion as an outsider. It was like he'd finally understood something about surrender, about discipline, about the rhythm of life that faith gives you. That realization, coming from a man who's literally seen the world crumble from the top down, that's what made his words hit different. Sata, and I think that's what freaked people out, because it wasn't expected, it wasn't safe, it wasn't filtered through a teleprompter. It was real. It was raw. And for once, the leader of the most powerful country on earth was talking about Islam not as a threat, not as a political talking point, but as a possible path forward for humanity. Ta-da, you know what's wild, man? The more I think about it, the more it feels like Biden wasn't just making a statement. He was confessing something. Like he'd been carrying this realization for a long time, but couldn't say it while he was in the middle of the political circus. And when he finally said it, it didn't sound rehearsed. It sounded like a man looking back at humanity, trying to leave one last honest message before he checks out. And that message was basically, we've lost our soul. Ta-ta, and he pointed at Islam as a reminder of that soul. Now that's heavy, dude, because for decades, the West has painted Islam through this distorted lens. Fear, extremism, control, all the usual headlines. But Biden, of all people, looked past that and said, there's something in there we forgot how to understand. And honestly, I get it. You spend your life in power, surrounded by greed, manipulation, and constant chaos. Eventually, you start asking what actually keeps people grounded, what keeps families strong, what keeps society from collapsing into total madness. And that's where Islam comes in. The discipline, the daily prayers, the fasting, the humility, the constant reminder that you're accountable to something greater. It's not just religion. It's structure. It's rhythm. It's a built-in moral compass. And Biden was basically saying, we've lost that in the West. We traded meaning for entertainment. We traded honor for convenience. We built everything around ego and appetite. And now we're wondering why everyone's anxious, lonely, and disconnected. And man, when you think about it, he's kind of right. Look around. We're drowning in technology, overstimulation, politics that feel like theater, and people who can't even sit alone with their thoughts for 2 minutes. Meanwhile, the essence of Islam, the call to prayer, the unity, the fasting that teaches you restraint, it's like the antidote to modern chaos. Biden was seeing that contrast. The West built the most powerful system in the world, but spiritually we're starving. And Islam, he realized, might hold the blueprint to fix that. Ta-da, that's what blew people's minds. Because here's this guy, this lifelong politician, and suddenly he's talking like a philosopher. He wasn't quoting scripture. He wasn't trying to sound holy. He was just acknowledging something real, that no empire lasts without moral grounding. Rome didn't. Greece didn't. And maybe America won't either, unless it rediscovers the value of faith, not necessarily one religion, but the principle of surrender, structure, purpose. And Islam happens to embody all three. Ta-da! And that's where it hit me, man. You could tell Biden wasn't trying to convert anyone. He was just warning us, saying, look, I've seen where greed and division take us. I've seen the world burn because of ego. And the only thing that survives after the fire is faith. You could feel the weight of it in his voice. Like he wasn't talking to a nation, he was talking to humanity. Like a dying man passing down the last thing he's sure about. And the craziest part, he said it in a way that sounded peaceful. Not like some grand speech, but like a man who'd finally accepted something. Like he'd spent decades chasing control, and now he realized the real power comes from surrender. And that's the essence of Islam. That's the part that hit me hardest. Because it wasn't political anymore. It was human. It was honest. So here's where it gets interesting, man. The reaction, holy shati, the world didn't know what to do with it. You could feel the confusion ripple through every corner of the internet. Like, people were split right down the middle. Some were like, what the hell is he saying? Others were like, wait, did the president of the United States just say something good about Islam? The media didn't even know how to cover it. They clipped parts of the statement, trimmed context, made it sound vague, almost harmless. But those who saw the full thing, they knew. They felt it. There was something way deeper happening in that moment. Teja, it's funny, man, how the truth always makes people uncomfortable. When someone powerful says something real, not scripted, not politically correct, just straight up truth, it scares the system. Because the system runs on illusion. It runs on distraction. So when Biden suddenly speaks from a place of reflection instead of control, they panic. They don't know how to process that, especially when the topic is something as misunderstood as Islam. You could see it all over the news cycle. Some anchors were spinning it like he was just trying to sound inclusive, trying to soften his image. Others treated it like a gaffe, like he misspoke. But people who actually listened to the tone, to the way he said it, they knew it wasn't a slip. It was clarity. It was like a man who'd spent his life behind the curtain, finally pulling it back and saying, hey, you're all missing the point. And that's what freaked everyone out. Because it wasn't political, it was personal, it was spiritual. You could almost feel this tension between the image the world had built of Islam and the reality he was trying to point to. Like, for decades, the West has been defining Islam through fear, headlines, wars, extremist imagery. But Biden, in that one moment, basically said, you've been looking at it wrong. Ta-da! And the craziest part is, when someone from the inside of the Western power structure says that, it carries a different weight. This wasn't some scholar or ma'am. This was the president, the guy at the top of the machine, saying there's something sacred in the very thing the machine's been demonizing for years. That's not just bold. That's revolutionary. And then you had regular people, man, podcasts, forums, TikToks, all of it. People started asking deeper questions. Stuff like, what did he mean by that? What did he see? Why would he say something like that at the end of his life? Some started digging into Islamic texts. Others started comparing teachings. And that's when it got wild. Because people began to realize that Islam wasn't this distant, foreign thing. It had principles that answered a lot of the problems the modern world's drowning in. Discipline, simplicity, accountability. The idea that your life isn't about chasing pleasure. It's about becoming better, more aware, more grounded. Yeah. Duh. And honestly, maybe that's what Biden meant. Maybe he wasn't just making a prediction about Islam's rise or power or influence. Maybe he was pointing out a shift that's already happening. Like, people are tired of chaos. They're hungry for something real, They're realizing that technology, politics, even success, none of it fills that spiritual void. And Islam, whether you agree with it or not, offers a clear structure to face that emptiness. So when he said those words, man, it was like he dropped a spiritual grenade in the middle of a system built on noise. Everyone scrambled, everyone denied it, everyone tried to explain it away, but deep down they felt it. The truth behind it was too raw to ignore, and that's what made it so powerful. The more I sat with it, the more I realized this wasn't just a political remark or even a compliment toward a religion. It was something bigger. Like, Biden wasn't talking about Islam as a belief system. He was talking about it as a mirror reflecting what the world has become and what it's missing. And that's what made it sound prophetic. It's like he was saying, if humanity keeps spiraling into chaos, greed, and moral collapse, the answer might come from the very faith we spent years misunderstanding. Jaja, and that's deep, man. Because think about where we are right now. People don't know who to trust anymore. Not media, not government, not even themselves. Everyone's constantly trying to find meaning through stuff, careers, fame, validation, technology. But none of that lasts. We've built this culture where everyone's exhausted and spiritually empty. And here's this old man standing at the edge of his own life saying, maybe the thing that saves us isn't new. Maybe it's ancient. Ta-da, that's powerful. Because what Islam represents beyond religion is alignment, structure. The idea that everything has a balance, the self, the body, the society, the earth. It's built around accountability, not just to yourself, but to something greater. 5 times a day, you're reminded that you're not the center of the universe. You fast to remember gratitude. You give charity because you're not supposed to hoard. You treat life as temporary, not because you're pessimistic, but because you understand that chasing forever is what makes people cruel. Ta-da, that's the stuff Biden was hinting at. He wasn't preaching, he was observing. He was looking at the world he helped shape and realizing we might have pushed too far in the wrong direction. Too much ego, too little humanity tech, not enough soul. Too much talking, not enough listening. And Islam, in its essence, stands completely opposite to that. It says, slow down, remember, surrender. Ta-da, and man, when you look at it that way, his prediction makes sense. He wasn't saying Islam is going to take over or dominate the world. He was saying it's going to outlast the world's madness. Because systems fall, economies collapse, politics shift, but truth, discipline, and faith endure. That's what shook people. He was saying Islam has the endurance that modern civilization doesn't. Ta-ta, and you can't deny it. Every time society collapses, it's not the wealthy who rebuild it. It's the ones with belief, the ones with order, the ones who pray even when the world burns. Maybe that's what he meant. That when all this noise, the wars, the greed, the misinformation finally implodes, the world might turn back towards something timeless, something that gives structure and meaning again. And Islam, by its nature, carries that blueprint. Ta-ta, you could tell he was wrestling with that truth. Like all his life, he played the game, politics, diplomacy, appearances, and at the end, he realized there's something humanity can't outsmart: spiritual law. You can build a $1 trillion economy, but if your soul's starving, it'll collapse anyway. He saw that. He lived that. And that's why his words sounded less like a statement and more like a warning, or even a prediction. Ta-ta, and maybe that's why it shook people like me, man. Because it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about recognizing that somewhere deep inside, we all know he's right. We know the modern world's off balance. We know people are lost. And hearing someone like him say it, someone from inside the very system that created the imbalance, it's like the universe reminding us that truth always finds a voice, even if it has to come from the most unexpected place. You ever have one of those moments, man, where something hits you so hard it rearranges the way you see the whole world? That's what this felt like. It wasn't just about Biden. It was about truth showing up in the least expected way. Like the universe reminding us that no matter how advanced we think we are, no matter how powerful we become, we're still small compared to the laws that govern life, the spiritual ones. And when he said those words about Islam, it felt like a crack in the illusion. For a second, all the noise stopped. Ta-da, and what made it so wild was how calm he sounded. There was no politics in his tone, no vote for me energy. Just this peaceful, almost resigned awareness, like a man who'd been at the top of the world looked around and realized, this isn't it. all the power, all the wealth, all the control. None of it could fill that void that only faith can. And when he looked at Islam, he didn't see it the way the media showed it. He saw something real, something grounded, something pure. Ta-da, and that's what I think really freaked people out. Because deep down, we all know he's right. We're living in a time where people worship comfort, not truth. We've replaced spirituality with content. We scroll like it's prayer, but it doesn't feed us. People say they're free, but they're trapped in their own desires, their own fear of silence. And then this old man, who's lived through every chapter of modern history, basically says, the answer's not new. It's been here all along. Ta-da. He didn't mean Islam in the way people think, like a flag or a movement. He meant Islam as surrender, the literal meaning to submit to something higher, something beyond ego. And when he said that, I swear, it was like he was handing humanity its own reflection. Like he was saying, you've built towers, but you've lost your roots. Ta-da, and the part that stays with me, man, is that he said it near the end. There's something about the words of someone who knows time's running out. It hits different. There's no agenda left. No pretending. It's just raw truth. Maybe that's why it felt almost prophetic, like he wasn't predicting politics. He was predicting the direction of the human spirit. That one day, when all our systems fail, when the screens stop mattering, people are going to go back searching for the only thing that ever made sense. Purpose. And maybe that purpose is what he saw in Islam, not the religion as a label, but the lifestyle, discipline, community, gratitude, balance. The reminder that you're here for something more than yourself, that you're part of something divine, whether you understand it or not. When I think about that, man, I can't shake it, because it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's about realizing that maybe he finally understood what billions of people already knew. That peace doesn't come from control, it comes from surrender. That freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want, but from mastering yourself. And that's what makes his words echo, even after he's gone, because they weren't just about Islam. They were about humanity, about us waking up before we lose everything that makes life meaningful. And that, man, that's the kind of truth you can't unhear once you've heard it.